Welcome back to the Meeple Marathon. Today we're going to talk about how to play Everdell Duo. Now there's several ways to play Everdell Duo. It can actually be played competitively and cooperatively. This video is going to cover how to play Everdell Duo competitively. So this is a two-player only version of Everdell. It's a head-to-head version. A lot of stuff is the same. You're going to see some similarities if you're familiar with Everdell. And a lot of stuff is quite different. This game plays much faster, and you definitely have to kind of be on top of your game and your strategy, because you can't just extend your turns per se. The rounds are very limited. You have a very limited number of turns in the game. And yeah, so let's talk about a few setup things here. Since the game can be played cooperatively as well as competitively, there's some components that you're just not going to make use of, or you're going to want to make sure you have the certain sides. So right off the bat, you might notice that there are these skunk meeples. You cannot use the skunk meeples. There's actually enough in here that you could play normal Everdell. I don't know if they're ever going to come out with, player powers for them, but for right now, you need to use either the tortoise or the hare. This is the fabled story of, who's faster, the tortoise or the hare. So, and you're only ever going to have 3 workers. You start with the 3 workers, you're only going to have 3 workers. But, so leave the skunks in the box if you are playing competitively. Also, there's some other cards. Also, the season tiles here, you can see that they have the season up in the upper left-hand corner. This is the winter tile. On the back side here, there's a little skunk in the upper right-hand corner. That's because you use when you're playing cooperatively or solo. So make sure if you're playing competitively, you have the non-skunk side up. Also, this board is 2-sided. You could play either way. You could play both ways on either side of the board, but this one has the journey spot. You're only going to use the journey tile in your competitive games. The other side just is missing this word, and they have some numbers to help you place out the skunks. Otherwise, they are the same. Okay, so you'll notice a meadow. You'll notice some Meeples. You'll notice some events and some seasonal actions here. You may also notice these sun and moon tokens here. So these are very important to the game of Everdell Duo. As you go head-to-head, back and forth in a typical 2-player game of Everdell, you're going to be advancing these tokens along this track in the middle. So you can actually see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces for each of these tokens to hit. Once they have both reached the end, that is the end of that season. So once the sun token and the moon token are both on this end space, we advance to the next season. So this is not like Everdell, where you could just continue to play as long as you can take actions. Maybe you've reserved some workers, or maybe you just have built up the stockpile of resources necessary to play a bunch of cards and combo them with other cards and things like that. That's not going to happen in this game. Once both these tokens are here, whether you can play cards or not, you're done. Everybody's done. So let's talk about how we advance these. And each player gets this very handy player aid card here. It's a very simple player aid card, but it just reminds you when you need to move these 2 tokens here. If you place a worker, and this is standard worker placement spots here, most of them are along the bottom here. So every time you place a worker, you have to advance the sun token. If the sun token is already at the end, you can't place a worker. And there are times where maybe this sun token advances for other reasons, and there may be times where you still have workers left over. Say this is how the workers have been set up, but the sun token's at the end. The hare player here is just stuck. He cannot place a worker because he cannot move the sun. So you place a worker, you move the sun token. Additionally to these bottom spots here, there's going to be red market cards like our chapel here. They're going to give you additional spots, just like in traditional Everdell. If I go to someone else's red card, destination card, they get a point coin like this. If somebody comes to mine, I get a point coin. So they're open to everybody. But all of these are single Meeple only. None of them are open where anybody can go. You'll also notice that there are spots along the top here that line up with these event cards. So these are similar to the events in regular Everdell, where there's a mixture, in this one, very much a mixture of different goals to achieve. So you'll say, for example, this one here. In this one, you would want to have a combination of constructions and buildings and wood. You have to have at least 6 total. All right, so you can't go claiming this early on. But once you have more construction and more wood, the combination of which is greater than or equal to 6, you can place a worker up here and claim that event. It's going to be worth 6 points at the end of the game, and you also get the bonus that's listed next to it here. You get that wood. This is the only time you can go up here and put a worker up here, is if you have the necessary requirements to meet and claim one of the quests, and then you get the resource. These are not open spots at any point in the game. All right, but every time we place a worker, we advance the sun token. Every time we play a card, and now this could be a card out of your hand, or it could be a card out of the meadow. And we'll talk about which cards you can choose out of the meadow in just a second. But real quickly, for those of you not familiar with Everdell, there are resources listed in the upper left corner here of all cards. All critters just use berries. All construction uses a mixture of wood, resin, and stone. You simply have to pay those resources back to the supply. You play this card down into your city, and it is there permanently. Each of the different colors does something different. They are the same as in Everdell, so if you're familiar with that, but just real quickly, I'll explain them. Green cards activate as soon as you play them, and during the spring and fall seasons when you change seasons. The red cards give you additional destinations. The blue cards give you a criteria of when that criteria is met, you get X bonus. For example, here, after you play a card from your hand, you gain a point if you have played the Gazette down. Purples only ever activate at the end. They're just end game scoring, and I don't have any out right now, but there are ones that look like this with the little traveler sack on them, the kind of dull brownish green. Those are powerful, but they only activate once. So when you play them, they activate one time and then never again. So those are all the colors and how they matter when you play them into your city. Also, as you can see, every card here has a point value. The name of the game is to have the most points at the end of the 4 seasons. Okay, so anytime you play a card, either out of your hand or out of the meadow, you have to move the moon token. So similar to the sun. So place a worker, move the sun. Play a card, move the moon token. All right, everybody with me? We're good to go. Now, there is important aspects as to where the sun and the moon token are, because if you want to play a card out of the meadow, you can only play a card that is adjacent to one of these tokens. So in this instance, if I wanted to play a card right now, it would have to be one of these 4 or one of these 4. As long as I have the resources, I just pick it up, play it into my city, I'm good to go. Replenish from the deck. If, however, they were like this, it would be these 4 or these 4. These ones in the middle here would not be available to me. Or if both tokens are next to each other, then only these 4 are available for you to play out of the meadow. Last but not least, the last action you can choose to take on your turn, and this is where you can kind of mess with the pacing of the sun and moon token, is that you can take a card. You can either draw a card from the top of the deck blind, or you can take a card from the meadow. These go into your hand. You're not playing these. And these do not matter. Taking a card out of the meadow just to put into your hand does not matter where these 2 tokens are. So you can take a card anywhere, no matter where the sun and moon token are. But when you take this action, you have to move one or the other. So you could take that action early on, move the sun token. That means there's only 5 more spots to move the sun token. Somebody's going to be left without the ability to place a worker. Or you could choose to move the moon token, but that's just less chances that you or the person you're playing against has to play a card. Also, at any point in time, you can discard 2 cards out of your hand to gain a single resource of your choice. Talk about a few other things here. You'll notice that everybody's got the standard resources, but there is a new resource that is an option here for the first time ever, and that is discarding a card. So in this case, to play the innkeeper here, we have to just discard a card to play him. We don't have to play any berry or put any berries back into the supply. We just simply have a card that we're willing to discard. Also, you'll notice here that the innkeeper has a little star next to his description. Any cards with a star on it usually are going to discount the cost of playing a card, whether out of the meadow or out of your hand or something like that. In this case, it says you may discard from your city to play a critter for 3 less berries. It's a pretty standard innkeeper bonus there, but the star means that you can only play 1 star card at a time when gaining the discount. So if I wanted to use my innkeeper, discard him from my city to gain discount on a critter, I could also not use the teacher here. I cannot go and use the teacher first, because see, there's a star there. The teacher says if I go here, I draw 2 cards out of the meadow, and then I play 1 of those 2 for 2 less resources. I could not use the teacher to draw a card out of the meadow and then use the innkeeper to make it free. Hopefully that makes sense, but you can only utilize 1 star card per turn. We are playing cards. We are placing workers. This is very Everdell-ish. We're moving these sun and move tokens. This is very new. When they get to the end, we both prepare for the next season at the same time. You'll notice there's a lot of symbols on here. You're not gaining any workers, but you are going to get the chance to add some cards to your hand and activate your production green locations. So, right off the bat, at the beginning of the game, you'll notice that the hare, at the beginning of winter, is going to get to draw a card from the top of the deck. The tortoise, however, is going to get to draw a card out of the top of the deck and claim a card out of the meadow. Then, every prepare for season after that, we're going to draw 2 new river locations. So that's going to mix up the options that you have for worker placement locations. Those are going to change every single season. And then you can see here that the tortoise is going to get to activate his green, the hare is going to get to activate his green, and draw a card from the top of the deck. So this little starburst, which is different than the star symbol we just discussed, but you're only ever going to see this starburst adjacent to green, this green symbol location. That just means activate. Then you can see down here things continue to get better, but it all balances out. But the tortoise and the hare are getting their benefits at slightly different times than each other. So, the hare player is always going to be the one to go first. That's represented by the fact that the hare is on the left here and the tortoise is on the right. In spring, however, the tortoise is going to get to go first, and then the hare and the tortoise and the hare. Everything's equal, but like we mentioned before, you have to play as the hare and the tortoise, or else all the symbology would be thrown off. All right. That's it, however. There's no, at least to my knowledge, there's no finite number of cards you can have in your city, so you can build it as big as you want, but you are very limited to the number of turns you have. This is a very much quicker playing game. Once you have reached both tokens to the end of the track in autumn, the game automatically ends. That's when you can claim the journey tile. This pretty much just means if you have the most cards in your hand and your city combined, you get this. It's 5 points at the end of the game. If there's a tie, neither one of you gets it. At that point, standard Everdell scoring mechanics. You're going to count up the points on your cards. You're going to count up point tokens that you have claimed, and you're going to count up point tokens from the various events you have claimed. And then that's it. High score wins. So, like I said, very straightforward, very common Everdell rules. The biggest change being the movement of these sun and moon tokens. When you have to move them, and the fact that then when they get to the end, you can no longer take those actions, and when they're both there, you advance to the next season at the same time. Now, there's one last rule that is very, comes in very handy in Everdell, keeps you from having to play resources, and those are the occupied tokens. You may have noticed that here, as kind of as I set up for the beginning of a game, neither side had any occupied tokens, and normally you wouldn't pass these out anyways, but you do not get access to occupied tokens right off the bat. You have to earn them. So you'll notice here that this spot, which is always available, you can go here, you can take a card out of the meadow, and you gain an occupied token. You would place it over here next to your meeples, just like any other resource. Then you can spend the occupied token just like you would in Everdell. You can place it on a location, all right, so it has to be on a construction, in order to play a matching color critter into your city for free. So that's pretty standard Everdell, except you always had to match the specific critter with their location. Here, there is no courthouse that the judge specifically goes into. There is probably a courthouse, and it's blue, and you can put the judge there, but you could also put the judge in the Gazette, as long as you have one of these that you acquire like any other resource. The last caveat is that you can only have up to 5 occupied tokens in your city, and they have to be each on a separate color. So if I do this storehouse town crier combo, I cannot do another green construction, green critter combo. It would have to be blue and blue, red or red, purple and purple, so on and so forth. And there's no golden occupied tokens like there are in some of the other versions of the deluxe versions of Everdell. So just wanted to point that out because that is also very different. Sometimes you have the perfect combo set up in Everdell and you just go ahead and play it out. Here, it's much more open as to who you can put in each location, but you have to have acquired those occupied tokens. Now, there are other ways other than this one location to occupy them. Don't go rushing there as your very first placement. Lots of cards are going to give you them, and other effects in the game. So, but that's going to do it. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know in the comment section below. I have enjoyed this version of Everdell so far. I would have loved to have seen full-size cards. The smaller cards are they're okay. I mean, the quality is fine. It's just the size of them. This is the whole Ticket to Ride formula where you felt like the cards were too small in your hand. But it's a very small footprint game. Obviously, it would get bigger with bigger cards, so I can only complain so much. But this one definitely is probably the better version of Everdell to play head-to-head with someone, in my opinion. And it is also is much quicker playing. If you are familiar with Everdell, you should pick this game up like that. And I also feel like there is a space on your shelf for this along with Everdell. I feel like these are two different enough games to warrant owning both. If you only have two of you, say you and your partner are sitting down, then get out this one. If you have a group, then you would obviously get out the larger Everdell. If you want to know how to play the cooperative version, that's going to be coming out in my next video. A lot of the rules are the same. And so now that you've known the basics, some of that stuff is going to be repeated, but that's going to be in its own separate video because it's very much a different game. So keep an eye out for that. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know in the comment section below. I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you to Tabletop Tycoon and Starling Games for sending me a copy of this in order to create this video for you. And otherwise, thanks for watching. Have a great day.